If you follow my video channel, you know that I like to break it up a bit. I like to show different aspects of the jobs that we get into, as well as some of the interesting things that we run across or get to see during our day. A lot of times my video is more than just a specific topic. It's about a lot of things that happen through the week. And I always try to throw a lesson in there of some sort. So today I'm going to start off by talking about water, how to use water, mistakes that people make, and hopefully we're going to get some rain this year because we need it so desperately. The entire west coast of the United States is in trouble right now, and we all need to learn how to be a little bit more respectful of the water that we have, but better yet, how to use what we have wisely. Water is the issue, and a lot of people are switching over to these drip systems, but they don't understand what the plants need. They put in this drip system and they lay it all out as if these were freshly, newly planted 1 gallon or 5 gallon pots. But as you can see in these images here, the root systems extend far beyond what the plant is getting. And what these people are doing is they are watering the trunks of the trees, and very little absorption is taking place. So it's very important not only to water in the appropriate areas, but water the entire root system. At least periodically get out there and water by hand. These same people have a few spots where they do take care of certain plants, and this was an interesting story. This is a tree that they brought over from their previous home 32 years ago, and it's always been in a pot, and they put it out here, and the roots of this tree have gone out of the pot and into the ground, and that's why it looks as good as it does. But you can see the containment there. In essence, this is a big bonsai, and this tree would be considerably larger if it didn't have a restricted root system. And another topic I want to talk about is logging. And when we change the world's forest system, we are changing the way water comes to us. The forests attract the weather. When you have a vast forest, it becomes a weather system of its own right. The rainforests of the world, the redwood forests of the world are so critical, but we take and we take and we take and we take. And every day I see logging trucks going down the hill. So we need to be more self-reliant and use what water we have for our own food. This is my garden, and it's doing quite well. A friend of mine has a well, and we've got enough water to take care of it. Awesome. It's actually Toby's garden. He brought out some eggs the other day, which were kind of funny. They were quail eggs. He's got a friend, and he fixed these up for me for lunch. I just threw this in there because I thought that was rather unusual. This was cool. This was at another job site. I spotted this hidden up in this hedge that needed pruning. It was an owl that's sitting there. We had a failure, a black oak, which is a tree that fails quite commonly up in our area. And it took out the wires last night. We were without power, and these people down here still have no power. And what I find very interesting is this was stubbed off here, this was stubbed off here, this was stubbed off here, and I'm sure the one that broke was stubbed off out here somewhere. And you can see the remains of an old wound right there. I'd have to look for the other side of it. But a couple things are going on right now. The acorns are immense. They're very heavy. Everything is really brittle and everything is really dry. But there's another added aspect to this failure that's interesting. The power company consistently cuts these trees back and then forgets about them for years, and then in some cases they create multiples of new branches, and those multiples increase the volume of acorns, which in turn results in a failure. So here's the piece that failed last night. Let's see what it looks like up here. There's one little weak spot over here. Zoom in on that. One little weak spot over here, but the wood seems pretty sound. That definitely added to the weakness of this, but an educated guess is that part of the problem was directly associated with chip cutting and not getting back to it. So I believe that this branch was excessively heavy. I know it's brittle, I know it's summer limb drop. There's a lot of things that you can say are the problems. And there's another failed black oak over there, which also has a similar situation. That one should come out. And if we look way up there, we've got yet another accident waiting to happen. So that one's actually been above the wires for a long time. I see there was a big failure over on this side, and realistically, these black oaks are a problem. Quercus caligai. That's one of the biggest failures that we have in the Santa Cruz Mountains. I would say 75% of all big tree failures that I see up here are the black oaks. Mistletoe. You know, that is a topic that I should do an entire video on just this subject, but because we got into a tree with some mistletoe and the timing of the year, we're in August right now, and I want to point out that the berries, the seeds from these trees are very, very sticky, and that is one of the forms of transport. They get stuck to the feet of birds and they get transported into other trees, and the stickiness allows them to stick to the branches and get started. This is a local black walnut, Juglans hinsii, one of the best of lumber trees around here, and it was full of mistletoe. The mistletoe can lead to limb failure and tree dieback. So getting back to our original topic, and that's water and how the trees are in trouble. This is a Monterey pine. Actually, there's 3 of them we're cutting down, and the 2 adjacent ones, by the time we got there, they're dying too. So the job was to cut down these 3, and we'll be back for the other 2 sometime soon. I'm up in my bucket, and I took the camera and I put it in the top pocket of my shirt, so it's kind of an interesting point of view type of a shot there. And the saw that I'm using here is a really old 020, and this is a good old saw. I mean, this is probably a 20-year-old saw, and it still runs and runs and runs. I don't use it every day, and that's why it's still hanging in there. I have about 4 or 5 small saws that I choose from, and I kind of mix them up. And this is one I haven't used in quite a while, and it's still cutting real nice. I use both saws quite often when I'm in the bucket truck. I'll bring a small gas saw, but I also bring the electric saw. And there are times that I prefer to use the electric saw. It's quieter. It's not as hot. It's not it's not as smoky. You don't get all the fumes. I just got through cutting a reasonably large limb. You can see that one down there. I just cut that one, and unfortunately, I started my camera, put it in my pocket, and I bumped the off switch, so you didn't catch that one. But this next one I did catch. This is my pocket cam, so sorry. So now I'm using the electric saw. This is the Husky, and I quite like this little saw. It's great for cuts up to about 8 or 10 inches. If you start doing larger wounds or larger cuts, then I always switch to one of the gas saws. But for the smaller pruning cuts and such, this is my preferred saw. It's about the same weight. The battery is quite heavy, but I just having the quiet saw, I really like it. I had to stop traffic there for that cut. We opted to chip a lot of the wood the client wanted a lot of chips. And in our area, dumping firewood is quite expensive. There's burn bans in Santa Clara County, and giving away firewood is getting harder and harder. And nobody seems to want pine. Pine is kind of a sticky, pitchy wood that people say creates creosote. Now you're looking at me taking this tree down, you're saying, why am I cutting it so high? Well, when we inspected these trees, we found out that there were wires and cables and all kinds of steel in the lower portions of the trunks of all of these trees. So I had just gotten through sharpening this saw, and I didn't want to cut another piece of metal. So this is the first of the 3 that we had to fell. I just set the camera down on the ground, so I don't have a cameraman getting this. I didn't need a rope on that one. It was a fairly easy, quick drop. I had previously gotten up in all of these trees and taken out all the brush from the bucket. We did jam up the chipper. Sometimes a small piece will get clogged up in there and it twists funny, and it throws everything kind of out of whack. Okay, this is kind of an interesting one. I was training somebody who, she's actually been with me a long time. She wanted to learn, so I said, sure, come on out, I'll teach you a few things. And Lucy worked her butt off on this job with us. She doesn't normally come out and do these kind of jobs, but I told her, I said I'd teach her a few things. So this was a fairly easy drop. I did put a rope on it, and I intentionally made the cut wrong. And I showed her, and I was talking to her about it, and I said, okay, I want you to see why. And you're going to see what's going on. The wedge that I cut, I intentionally undercut it too far. And you'll see, this is actually a really good video, and if you have some newbies in your group, show them what happens when you don't make the cut quite right. I'm taking a still here to show you. So I have him pull it, and it stops. Now take a look at this still here, and you'll see what I'm talking about. There's the back cut. All intents and purposes, it should have gone, but you see how I overcut the bottom, so it stopped there. It was weak enough where he could pull on it and pull it over, or I could have cut it all the way through. But the point is, this was a simple cut. But if it was a big tree in an awkward position, and you got yourself into that kind of a scenario, you could get in real trouble. That could be real bad. So learn how to make your wedges perfect, and understand the value of the uppercut and the hinge. Yeah, we were ripping a bunch of these pieces, and we kept finding steel everywhere. I can't tell you how many times I sharpened my big saw. So we were chipping a lot of this stuff. I also had another little incident. Jorge was cutting on the other side. I did put wedges up there to prevent this from happening, but as he cut one through, it shifted and rolled and pinched. There's one where I fortunately stopped just in time. I was cutting and looked, and there was another piece of wire down there. This is interesting. As I was cutting, all of a sudden, water came shooting out of this cut, which kind of surprised me because the tree was totally dead. So there was a pocket of water in there, and it was gushing out. Did put the wedges in there. So this is a bit of training. Lucy wanted to learn a little bit more. In all fairness, I kind of pushed her into this. She didn't want to make this big cut. And I said, come on, you can do it. You can do this. So we talked at great length about the value of the wedge. And I let her cut it. And I didn't get in there and take the saw away from her. I let her do every bit of it. I did tell her what was going wrong. And she didn't quite understand it, but she got the cut almost perfect. It took her a while. I stopped her a few times and said, okay, reline that up. Now she has to realize that she's got to make a little bit more chainsaw work to get this completely out of here. Jorge and I were both instructing her on this. Maybe a little bit too much. But I showed her that earlier undercut, and I showed her the importance of not doing that. So she made a pretty damn good cut. I was really impressed. And then we made the back cut. She started off wrong. You see there's a bad lower cut there that was too low. And we stopped her and said, no, we got to fix it. It's got to be a little bit higher. And we talked at great length about the balance and the evenness of the hinge that you leave all the way through. I talked with about, checking. You have to look at both sides. You have to see where you're at. We did actually put a small stick on the other side of the wedge so she'd have a target to aim for. But balancing out that hinge is really important. So she pulled it off, but I'll just let you watch this last little bit.
Let's take a look at this cut. Not bad. And what I'm looking at here, what I'm looking at here is the hinge. All right.
You see right here?
There should be more.
You see right here?
There should be more hinge left, right?
Yeah, you see right here? You got hinge right here, and right here, nothing.
Yeah, you cut all the way through. That's why I was saying
Yeah.
keep watching as you go so you can balance it out. And once
But
you
it's
get
been
a feel,
pretty good.
I thought you did great for
Yeah.
first big tree, man. I give you an A+.
Well, I need some guidance, but I had the same distance here on this side as I did that side. So what I wanted to do is to
Has to be the
put it-
same distance.
Yeah.
You see this right here, and right there is
But the
nothing.
bar,
That's because at the end,
doesn't go all the way
at the
through.
end, when one start leaning, you just keep cutting that way, and you feel like, I don't know what I was thinking, but you went more that way, and said that remove the chainsaw.
I saw it start, but then I wanted
You went.
Oh.
It was already going.
So there's no holding wood because I cut.
It was already going good,
Yeah.
perfect. But then you started to cut more right here, and you feel like, I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know what happened. And you just went boom, more of this way. So that's why you cut more right here. But the perfect was right, it was perfect. But then when we started leaning, you just went more.